Hi, this is Pam with ROC Metaphysical, and I'm doing another interview today. If you haven't seen any of the other videos, so ROC Metaphysical, it's ROC Metaphysical, all one word, .com is the name of my metaphysical magazine. New articles come out the first of each month. And a part of this is doing videos to go with articles that are written, or just I find people and we do a video and it's on my YouTube channel, which you can also go to anytime. You don't need to be a member. So today we're talking to Sandra, who is from Rochester, where we're both from Rochester, New York, the center of all things metaphysical and spiritual. And I found out that she does sound healing. And as you can see behind her, she has some beautiful gongs and some crystal bowls. So I kind of like to do this as like people have never seen it before, so they get kind of a basic understanding and then we can get into it further. So I see crystal bowls, which they're probably have different tones that come out of them and maybe different hertz. I don't know if you get that into it.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about what are the crystal bowls all about?
So the crystal bowls are, in my opinion, about bringing people into deeper resonance with self and relaxation. And so if you pay attention to what the notes are and you choose to play in fifths or thirds, you can bring folks into such a deep, relaxed state that they go into the theta brainwave state. And then they're consciously relaxing. When I'm doing a private or a group sound bath with the crystal bowls, more often than not, most people fall asleep. Um,
Yep, that's happened to me.
yeah, I think it's because we live in a very sleep deprived society at the moment. But ideally, we should be consciously relaxing. And due to the different notes and the different hertz of the bowls, those resonate with different colors. So even though folks' eyes are closed, sometimes they'll see really vivid colors, and it's simply because of a certain bowl I'm playing. And then, of course, there's all sorts of other experiences people have. Some people become very creative in the days and weeks following a bath. Some people will see vivid numbers, letters, shapes during the bath. And other people have really powerful memories of, 20, 30 years ago or longer, or even some folks have past life experiences during the experience with crystal bowls.
And so the crystal bowls are actually made out of like quartz crystal.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And they vibrate, they can range to very high pitch, I'm assuming small. And then the bigger it gets, it's a much deeper, rich tone.
That is
And
correct. And it also depends on what note it is. There's my grandfather clock. And I lost my train of thought.
well, it's tones and the different sizes and what they're made
Oh,
of.
yeah, so there's different styles of crystal bowls. What the majority of them back there, the white ones, those are the frosted crystals, so they have a more grainy sound with them. And then I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's the handheld clear crystal ones. And it's a much clearer sound. They both have very long sustains and resonance. And it just depends on what you're looking to bring out in your practitioners or what energy hits you that day in order why you pick what you pick to play.
Right. And there's also is it Galinsky bowls, which they look like a giant wine glass, kind of. It has a stem and then a big bowl. And
Yes, I have actually got a few of those. Like there's a full set back there, but then I have one that's double-ended. So you've got the bowl on one side and a bowl on the other side, and then it's actually hollow in the center. Um, And that one I got in a perfect fifth. So it's really nice when I play both sides and then swing it through the crowd.
Right. So just so if people don't know what a sound bath is, that's when you go usually to someone that has a space, and usually people lie down, but they don't have to. They can sit in a chair or whatever they feel they want to do. And then from my experience is either you sit up front and just play however you're called, I guess, it's just what you think you need to do that day. Or sometimes people do walk through, as people are laying down and can, if they're using small sound instruments, they may stand over you and let the sound just come right over you. At least it felt that way to me. So both are really great. So that's what a sound bath is. So some people may not have heard that terminology, but I think it's becoming more common.
Mm-hmm. And I like to differentiate depending on what people's needs are and what they want to order for a sound bath. So for me, a sound bath is a single or multiple gongs, some crystal bowls, chimes, and all sorts of other smaller instruments. And then I consider just crystal bowls a crystal bowl bath. That's what people order sometimes. And then with the Himalayan metal bowls, I'll call that a sound meditation if they just want the metal bowls. And sometimes having just the metal bowls with the gongs, that can be a really complementary, more subtle sound bath than using the crystals. The metal bowls tend to be a lot deeper in resonance, and whereas the crystal are more high.
Right. Right. And I've had friends that have had those, and you have a piece of equipment that you rub the outside of either a crystal bowl or a Tibetan bowl, which is usually made out of brass or a very specific metal material.
Well, traditionally, there's 7 metals that do go into most of the bowls, and there's a different percentage. The antique bowls, which are the really old ones, a lot of them haven't been figured out what type of metals are in them because they're very lightweight, even if they're a larger bowl. But they usually have an amazing resonance and vibration to them. And depending on your mallet choice, that can get you so many different sounds out of a single bowl, depending on if you strike it, if you're rubbing it around the rim, or if there's some different techniques that you can use during rubbing it. You can do circular sounds and like zigzaggy sounds, depending on how you're dragging the mallets across the bowl.
So, and I guess this is my question. So you have an event.
Mm-hmm.
If you have time and you find out what the people would like, then you say, okay, it's like a prescription. Okay, I'm going to do 3 crystal bowls, 4 Tibetan bowls, and 2 gongs. I mean, do you find out what the people like? And of course, I'm sure they love it all and they want you to play it all. But do you sometimes use like your intuition, or is it like medicinal, like, based on this is what I need to do?
So there's many different factors that come into that. If I'm doing a private session with a single person or 2 people, I usually do some talking ahead of the time with them. And, they let me know what issues are going on with their body, with their emotions, with their spiritual life. And from there, I let my intuition take hold and play what I feel will be the best to resonate with them and help in their healing process. And then there's other times where I get a lot of private gigs where people hire me on for a wedding, a funeral, a baby shower, a family reunion, you name it. And they call up and they want specific instruments. So I sit there, and from what they specifically want, I let my intuition pick, if they want one or two gongs, because I have about 17. I let my intuition choose the gongs, and if they want crystal bowls with that, or, so I spend a lot of time talking to the private clients to find out what they want for their bath. And then when I do my monthly sessions at different studios around town, that's strictly intuition. Or a lot of times I will go with the seasons or the cycle of the moons and the planets, because you want to align the correct planetary gongs, which I have some planetary gongs, with what's going on in the natural world or the seasons. And also, depending on how the general mood or energy is for the human race at the time, depending on, different stuff that's going on for us. That also helps me choose if I need to bring in a gong that's a bit more energizing, if I need to bring gongs that are more grounding. So it's all, at the end of the day, it's all intuition, but there is some other reasons as to why I do choose what I choose to bring to each event.
Right. And I was thinking about, I watched a YouTube video, and his first name, I think, is Don. And I think he has a French last name. And I think he's, pardon?
Conroe? Don?
He's an older gentleman with silver hair. And I watched.
A lot of out there.
Pardon?
I said there's a lot of older gentlemen out there.
Oh, but it plays gongs specifically. And it was quite a, and maybe because he was being videotaped, and he had like 2 or 3 stacked, like 6-8 feet, in some kind of, maybe it's for performance, so he could access them all. And it was very busy. And I guess if I had my preference, I would like, my sound bath to be more soft and very, relaxing. And he was just, going to town.
Yeah, if it's the gentleman that I think you're speaking of, I did do a training with him. I believe it was last October. And yes, his style of gonging is quite intense in comparison to my style as well. I'm a bit softer when it comes to the gongs, but it also depends on, again, you have to go with the energetic flow. And if you do need to raise the energy, then the sounds of the gongs needs to be raised a bit too.
Right.
Definitely be the ebb and flow. It shouldn't be a constant, nonstop, up high energy. You want that sound wave, so
right,
that people have the experiences of flowing up and down, and in and out.
So then you probably use tuning forks too, correct?
I do. I'm newer to the tuning fork, so I haven't used those as much as all this other craziness.
No, I think it's fun. It's like being in a toy store. So
that's always how it is. Yeah, I do a lot of international travel, and so I feel like a kid in a toy store every time, because I do a lot of stuff with indigenous tribes, and I was in Peru last summer, so I brought a lot of beautiful stuff back from Peru. In fact, I've got one item sitting here, which is beautiful carved, but it's a condor feather. And it's great because in the middle of the bath, when it's really intense, I will fly this through the room, and people really think there's birds in there. Wow. So, and it just softens if it had been a pretty intense bath. So it just brings softness, clarity to people. and just a calming, soothing portion of the sound bath.
So, you know, when you talk about sound, I guess that would be my question. So it's because of the wavelengths of, you know, either the bowls or the gongs. Is it because our brain is receiving the sound signal and it does something? Is it going to change it from alpha to beta? Is that what's happening when we're listening?
Yes, that's what happens, but it's not only the brain. Like we have hearing senses in the skin, in the bones, in the muscles, in all our organs. And that's where you can start to use sound to begin to facilitate in helping people in their healing processes. Because along with getting you into these different brainwave states, when these different vibrations penetrate the different organs or skin or bones, they can bring them back into vibration. Because when we're sick, we're actually in dis-ease or disease. And so that's our body's way of saying, hey, we're out of balance, we're out of vibration. And each organ has a different vibration for its health. And my liver has a different vibration than your liver because my liver is a slightly different size, slightly different shape. So a bowl that may work for my liver to bring it back into correct vibration may not necessarily be the same bowl or gong that would bring your liver back into vibration. And so it's a lot of this is intuition, but a lot is trial and error because everybody is individual. So when I go to play on an individual person, sometimes the bowl will not play on a certain body part on a person. And that is for two reasons. Either they are completely out of vibration in that area, or it's just not resonating with their body. So sometimes I have to pick another bowl, and all of a sudden that one will vibrate beautifully because that's resonating with their body. But then there's other times if I just sit and try to play that bowl that maybe sounds a little funky and keep going with it, once that organ or whatever body part I'm working with starts to come into better health and vibration because of the sound and vibration penetrating that area, the bowl sound actually starts to smooth out and sound completely different. And then once it's been in that really smooth, beautiful sound for a while, that's my sign, ooh, this body part is back to where it needs to be. And that's my time to pull the bowl off of the body.
All right, because I have a friend that was working with tuning forks, and she would put them, you know, if people understand, like a tuning fork has got, you know, two top pieces and then one piece down below. So she would hit them so they would start vibrating. And she could tell as she ran it along when it would change. And then she would say, well, maybe this is something we should work on because like the tone made a noticeable change. And I was just, you know, mesmerized that, you know, that you could use the sound of the tuning fork going down and that you would hear a change in the sound because something is different. And, you know, it may need to be addressed either with very specific sound healing and or other things to help them get back to a place of complete, you know, 100%, you know, wellness. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I have hundreds of stories that mirror that same concept that you were just talking about, whether it's with the bowls or with the gongs. You know, if I'm doing a group session and somebody has really negative energy, my gongs won't play. And then I had this one time where the person with the really negative energy just got up and walked out of the room. And the second that person walked out of the room, my gongs sounded magical again. And I thought I was making stuff up because this was at the beginning years ago of my sound healing journey. And I had somebody that faithfully came to every event And she comes up to me and she's like, I'm not sure what you were doing at the beginning of the practice with the gongs, but they sounded awful for the first 5 to 7 minutes. And she's like, after that, all of a sudden they sounded magical. And that woman with the negative energy had been in the room for the first 5 to 7 minutes and then left. And so I'm like, huh, I'm not making this up in my head. Somebody else experienced this. So it was very confirming, but it's just a repeat story after repeat story after repeat story. It just, and every time it boggles my mind because it's so fascinating. You never know what's going to happen. As long as you are playing quality and gently, there's really no bad side effects.
What about a simple, a story about a simple health change? It was maybe a one-on-one session and somebody had a health issue, not too bad, but there was resolution because they came. Do you have a story to share?
I've had numerous people, folks in their 60s and 70s who have gotten off of blood pressure medications because of the deep relaxation of the practice. One of my most just mind-blowing times was I was actually teaching a group yoga class, but I had brought a couple of my therapeutic metal bowls with me. And the one woman came up and she's like, well, while you're teaching, can you just play the bowl on my knee? Her one knee was swollen double the size of her other knee. And so I placed my bowls around the knee and one on the knee. Specifically, I have a bowl with a hole in it, so it fits on joints very well. And I started playing it. It sounded horrid. And I sat there and played on her knee for 45 minutes of the hour class nonstop. And I visually watched the knee start its swelling that had been swollen for 2 weeks, I think, at that point, start to go down. And everybody else in class was watching this in amazement too, as they were sitting in the different poses that I was telling them to go into. And after that 45 minutes, she had 2 normal sized knees. And she was actually pain free as well. And so that one was just cool because I visually saw it, and so did everybody else. And I use a lot of this stuff for just simple pain management.
Well, I like it when, you saw it, but other people saw it. So it's not like you're just making this stuff up,
Yeah. Yeah, I always used to question it, but like when other people see it or feel it or hear it, then I'm like, okay. I'm not making
Well, right, because you think it's just in my head, or no, I must have saw that wrong or something, so we're always, well, I know a lot of, people question because we want to make sure we're doing quality work and we're, true to what we say we're doing. So, we're trying to be ethical and doing right by what we do. So, yeah. So, I love that. So I love it when you have a couple good stories to say that this is really valid work, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that say, oh, it's a bunch of baloney. But even if you just listen to it just for the joy of listening, it's beautiful to me. I mean, I played music and was a DJ a way long time ago and played multiple instruments. So music is always something I really enjoy. So when I go to a sound healing, I love it, enjoy it. And, it's very relaxing to me. And just because I have a busy life too, to take that time to myself and just quiet down and just kind of not even think about anything and just hear the music and just, relax. And probably should do like blood pressure machines on everybody before and after, so you can see that, 45 minutes of listening to beautiful sounds. I mean, how can you go wrong?
I have a couple people that wear those watches to class that have the blood pressure on them. And so they monitor it before they walk in and after, and it's always lower.
Yeah. Yeah. So I highly recommend people to go to a sound healing or a sound bath. So it's very exciting. I'm so jealous that you're going to Thailand and then Iceland. So anytime you need a helper, let me know. But you do things around Rochester and probably Western New York. Is there any coming up soon in the next few months that you're going to be in Rochester?
I actually have 2 this weekend, and there
Oh,
are 4 spaces available at each one. So Saturday, it's 1 to 3, and that is at Eternal Bliss. It's a studio in Henrietta. And then Sunday, 1 to 3 again, and that is at Element Yoga, which is in Webster. So if anybody is interested in those, and I just bounce around to different studios, and you can always contact me via my website or email, sunflowervibrations.com. I have a calendar up. Otherwise, since I will be out of the country for about the next month, my next group or public sound healings or sound baths will not be until December 3rd and December 10th.
okay. So we would go to, what is it again? So, this is all about you promoting yourself. So Sunflower.
Sunflowervibrations.com. Make sure you get the S on the end of vibrations, otherwise a bunch of sunflowers pop up. I'm not opposed to those. Those are my favorite flowers, but it won't help you out with my calendar of events. And I also co-host retreats internationally, and that's what I'll be working with sound healing on an elephant sanctuary in Thailand. And then I am co-hosting a retreat in Iceland where I will be playing gongs and doing a lot of sound baths for the folks on that retreat. And then moving into next year, possibly in July, I will be also co-hosting a retreat to Bali and or Peru over the summer, and maybe another retreat towards the end of the year. I also do local retreats as well. So those kind of come up haphazardly. So you can check my calendar out for those as well.
Where in Peru are you going?
We'd be flying into Cusco, and then it's about, I think, if I remember correctly, because when I was there last time, I think it was about a 2-hour drive. Beautiful retreat center there, lots of land in the mountains. It was just gorgeous, and I came back with a lot of very cool instruments and cool experiences to talk about.
Yeah, I've been to Peru 2 times, and I don't know if you went to the large market in Cusco, the open air market.
Yes.
You have a lot of interesting things there, and yeah, Peru is magical. So, put a shout out for Peru.
It definitely is. It definitely is.
If people want to go, I mean, usually the retreat places that I've stayed at do things on the property, and then they also will do, trips out to go to different places. And it was beautiful and lovely, and the people were just so kind and warm and just so much fun. So definitely, if you're going to think about doing something, I would check out her webpage.
Yeah, and I
see what's going on.
I do have friends that own a retreat center in Mexico, and that's much easier to get to than like Peru, Bali, Thailand. So people that do want to do something international, but not quite so far and hectic, that may be coming into play next year as well. So you would just fly into Cancun, which is a simple flight from here.
Right. Yep. I've gone there too. So yeah, that usually is a hop to New York and then New York to straight to Mexico.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so then there's this beautiful, they're off the beaten path, and it's in between Playa de Carmen and Tulum. So
Oh,
really
nice.
kind of deep in the jungles, and just beautiful and small, and yeah, really.
Yeah, I want to do them all.
Well, you know where to find me.
Well, yeah, I do now. Okay, so we said your website, and definitely check the calendar if you're looking for something local in the central western New York area, or if you're looking to travel, might be
Yeah.
worth checking out.
I just did a tour down the East Coast in, when was it? Last week of August, first week of September. So sometimes I pop up at different festivals on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to sign up to be your assistant when you're ready.
Start
Okay.
lifting weights. This is heavy
Well,
stuff to cart
oh
around.
well, I do vending, so I know what it's like. I feel like a gypsy. My
Yeah.
car is already loaded for something I've got to do tomorrow, and I still got to get more stuff in the car. Okay, well, I think that's it. So I thank you for the time and the interview, and recommend that people check out sound healing, especially with you. But if you're not around in Rochester, it's all over now. I mean, if you Google sound healing in the town that you live in, there's probably somebody that's doing it. And it's also good to look at their background too, to make
I
sure.
was gonna say, be mindful of that, because sound healing is now the popular, cool thing to do. So many people do get a few instruments and turns into what I consider a noise bath, because they don't really have any official training. And I have been training for about a decade now, and I still go to 3 to 4 trainings with different teachers every single year. It's just something that is an endless knowledge if you keep educating and moving forward. But you do want to make sure your practitioner is well educated, because they can do some major damage to you if they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know the notes that go together, or what aggravates, like, let's say, concussion symptoms, and it can be very detrimental.
That's a good point. I mean, we didn't even go into that, but I know there's like some place like Omega, or a very qualified institution, offers classes. And usually that person has to have a lot of certifications in order to teach.
Yeah.
So what's going on.
And I've traveled to LA to get trainings, Nebraska of all weird places to get trainings. I've been to Spain to get trainings, Mexico, some online stuff. I know there's a place in Vermont that does some really excellent training. So there's lots of different places to go. But again, just ask a lot of questions in terms of the people you're going to train with as well. So it's just important to educate yourself on all levels.
Right. Just like anything. You should always go to a qualified person. And just like we were talking, like the sound healing can help heal you. And if you don't know what you're doing, it could do the opposite. So, who would think about that,
Yeah.
So that's a really good point.
And it's also the quality of instruments that you have, because you can get a bunch of stuff kind of cheap, but the quality and the resonance isn't going to be there. So it's not going to have as profound effect on people, and or it may injure them just because it's so off sounding. Because this is not a cheap industry to be in by any means. But usually your more expensive stuff is going to be your more higher quality stuff, which is going to have the longer sustains, and give people a quality experience when they do come to your engagements and events.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, you can go to shops and pick up a little crystal bowl for like $30, but how well is it made? And what is it even made of? But I mean, it's fun. You go home and play with it, and maybe it's a good way to step into it
Yeah, it's a good toy to have for your own personal use at that point, but not to say, hey, I'm going to do a sound bath with this and a rattle that I
Right.
have.
All right. Well, good point. So, all right, now we're really done.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, well, it's nice to chat. So, and I'll have to check out your website because now I maybe want to come to one or two here in Rochester, and maybe I'll have a little time and do a retreat that's a little farther away.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
okay. So I'm going to hit the button again. So I'm going to say thanks and happy trails on your trip.
Thank you. Thank you.